welcome back to my channel, all 3 current subscribers. If you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. Now today's topic is going to be the 3 stages of religion. And what I mean by that is, there's 3 levels that religion works on, or 3 types of people. And the first type of person is going to be the young. This is the most common individual brought into a religion. The very young are gotten in before they've had a chance to really develop their mind and their critical thinking capabilities. They're brought in at a time when you can convince a child that a fat man rides a magical flying sled pulled by magical flying reindeer who are even lacking of wings. Like the whole thing is levitating by magic, and that this same dude is able to see you at all times and keeps a list of who's good and bad. This same group of people can be convinced that fairies exist who come to their room and take their teeth from under their pillow and leave them money behind. The same group of people who can be made to believe that a rabbit is depositing candy hidden inside plastic eggs at certain times of year. So, what religion ends up being is a fairy tale similar to the ones I've pre-mentioned. However, whereas eventually you grow out of it, you either realize it on your own, your parents finally come clean, or you find out when you're in school and somebody finally tells you. However, religion stays with you. And the reason it stays with you is that religion was given to you by someone in authority, and that someone in authority never pulled it back, never told you, I'm just kidding. And in the case, in my personal history, what my parents did was they never did the whole Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy and whatnot. And the reason that they gave for that was that they did not want me to realize that they had effectively lied about Santa Claus and then question Jesus. Because if they were wrong or misleading about one person who doesn't exist, why then should I believe them about another person who they say does exist and they maintain does exist? Well, there really wouldn't be any reason to. So they wanted to keep the they wanted to keep all the fairy tale away except for one, and that was the religion. And it was driven into me so hard and for so long, because it wasn't until I was around 20 that I finally woke to a realization that it was really a fairy tale. And at best, why believe it now after all this time of not believing it before even this time period? So I finally dropped my religion. And even then, even once I realized this is not my religion, it was still very difficult for me to let go of that religion. And I was very much afraid when I went to let go of it, because I've been drilled into me from the day, effectively almost from the day I was born. There's a heaven, there's a hell, and God is very fond of sending people to hell. So writing off this idea of indoctrinating children from near birth into a religion to keep them for life, so that way you can keep them believing an idea, or even get them started to believe in an idea that anyone who is thinking rationally would completely reject right offhand. If I went and told most adults there's a horned horse, a single horned horse called a unicorn, it has all these magical properties, but you can't see them, and you can't really talk to them because you're probably not going to hear them, But they're there. And what they want you to do is X, Y, and Z. And if you don't do it, they're going to kill you. But they're not going to kill you now in your physical body. They're going to kill your soul when you die. Most humans will look at me with utter disbelief. Hell, I simply told them that there were unicorns, they would look at me in complete disbelief and go, yeah, okay. But you could convince a child of that. And without changing their exposure, keep that child believing that. And if you do that long enough, by the time that child is an adult, that child is going to wholeheartedly believe in these unicorns that are going to kill their soul if they don't do what these unicorns want them to do. And furthermore, are going to spread it to their children. And there you go, birth of a religion. So, the first way you kill a religion is you kill indoctrinating children from near birth. And it's a challenge. I would offer this challenge to anyone who is of a religious mind. Don't expose your child to anything to do with religion, with your religion, until your child is 18. Let your child experience the world. Let your child learn how the world works. And then, when they're now having all this foundational information, now expose them to it. Your child is more than likely not going to follow along with it. And if they do, definitely not as strongly as if you got them from a very young age. And the reason why no one of a very strong religious bent would even consider following this idea would be because they know that their child will not be strong in their religion, and they may not quite realize it. They may not think about it in their head consciously, but subconsciously they realize that would be the death of their religion. Because the next group of people following along in the footsteps of the children is the weak of mind. And the weak of mind are people who pretty much get taken advantage of. So, you might say you were an atheist all your life, but now you've suffered a tragedy. Well, here your religious friend is swooping in and bringing you some form of comfort in a form of religion. And the thing is, the weak of mind are far outnumbered by children. So your religion won't immediately die off simply by relying on, by no longer bringing your children immediately into the fold, because you're going to have some weak of mind people that you're still going to be able to convince to join you. And some of these people can be convinced very strongly to join you. Many of your terrorists who end up killing people are these very same weak of mind people. They weren't necessarily brought up with it as a child. And so effectively your religion is relying on children who are weak of mind and adults who are weak of mind many times due to a event outside of their control. And the final group of people that I'm going to touch on just briefly, because there's not really much to put for them, is the impatient. And we'll touch on this a bit more when we get into topics such as evolution and science versus religion. But if your thing is science, you have to be patient. It takes time to learn. It takes time to get the answers. Humanity does not have all of the answers to how the universe works, but if you want to know all of the answers, pick a religion, because almost any religion out there has all of the answers. That's the entire concept behind a religion. Do you want to know how the universe started? Go read the Bible. Do you want to know how man got created? Go read the Quran. Instead, if you go with science, you have to be patient. You have to sit there and wait. Maybe do some work yourself and do some research yourself, or go out in the field and actually do the actual study in order to find out. And some things don't even have nice cut and dry. For instance, the evolution of mankind. It's not a light switch getting turned on and all of a sudden now, voila, we have mankind. It's a long process, and at some point you eventually get to something that's human. And that doesn't work for the impatient person. And many people in religion, I've noticed this when they debate various topics. So, Christianity, for instance, I'm going to pick on Christianity a lot because that's the religion that I grew up with. So I know the most about this religion. And my comments on other religions is from my observations being an outsider both while I was Christian and after. So, in Christianity, in the Bible, the Holy Bible of the Christians explains how the universe got here, why it's here, and what each part is supposed to do. It's all encompassing. It explains how animals got here. It explains how the earth got here. It explains where light comes from. It explains the origins of good and evil. It's all wrapped up in one nice little book. Science is a lot messier than that. In science, there's so much information and such a broad area of topics that people end up having to specialize in one small area. And if you get outside the area they specialize in, they don't know. So, an example is evolution. Evolution explains how a earlier form of an animal, plant, fungus, or single cell organism becomes a different type of related single cell animal, plant, or fungi, and it explains how over time becoming slightly different forms eventually makes it so it's no longer anything to do with what it was once before. And it explains how it splits off and how you get different varieties of these different types of life forms. What evolution does not do, and what does not even attempt to do, is to explain how life started. It does not attempt to explain how time started. It does not attempt to explain how the star that is our sun started. It does not attempt to explain how the universe started. It only attempts to explain how life changes over time. That's it. But a creationist Christian will point to evolution and go, well, your theory of evolution can't explain how the universe started, therefore it's junk. Well, no, that's not what the theory of evolution is there to do at all. The theory of evolution is to explain the change of animals over time. And because you can see this happening in real time, in my opinion, you're kind of crazy to completely discount it. And in my case, being a very devout Christian, who I used to argue very often and very enthusiastically for creation against evolution, that was a common thing for me, was that, well, you can't explain it. Now, one thing I tried to do as a creationist was, I tried to stay away from the origin. Because if you go and ask an evolutionist or an atheist, I'm going to go with atheist in this case, because that at least applies. If you ask an atheist, well then, how did this all start? Well, it's very difficult for the atheist to explain to you exactly how everything started. It's a very complicated field of mathematics and astronomy that goes into dealing with how everything actually got started. And as I understand, they're getting down towards where they can figure out how the first few minutes started, but they haven't yet figured out with certainty exactly how everything started. Now your Christian is very certain how everything got started. Your Christian is very sure that everything started because God started it. But that's not the start. The start is what started God. And so as a creationist, I would actually stay away from that topic altogether. Because the moment that you pulled out how the universe started, they pull out how did God start, and they have a lot better explanation for how the universe started than I had for how did God start. And in my case, a lot of the reason why I had trouble with the how did God start was Christians have trouble with how did God start, because the general answer that Christians will give you is magic. God exists forever because he's outside of time and space itself. Therefore, he had no start. Magic. The problem is, I may be a being soaked in magic, but magic is not an explanation I'm willing to accept for almost anything. So, moving on from that, I would look at, I found myself having to change my belief in Christianity as time went on, as I gained more information. I still held firm to my belief in Christianity. However, I eventually had to concede that microevolution was a thing. And the reason I had to concede that was, as soon as you realize that people breed animals and breed plants to get desired changes in those breeds, and when you realize the massive changes that humanity can make in a species, you realize, well, okay, there's at least some kind of change happening here. So then, eventually, but the thing that you get stuck on as a Christian, especially as a young Earth creationist like I was, you get stuck on the idea of microevolution. And the concept of microevolution, macroevolution, that exists only within Christianity. They pretty much invented that. Microevolution is just simply evolution. It tends to be simply evolution that hasn't happened over a very long period of time yet. It's evolution that might have happened over the course of a few years, a few decades, a few millennium, but it's not evolution that's happened on a planetary scale in terms of age. You know, it's not millions and billions of years. And moving on to that, the next thing that creationists get stuck on, because if at least to me, at least for me, when I was steeped in creationist circles, when I was going to church 4 times a week, I think it was, because we went to church for the Sunday church sermon, and then we went to Sunday church sermon, then we went to the evening church sermon, and then we went to the Wednesday booster course. And in between that, we also had watching Pastor Arnold Murray for an hour every day, sometimes more. It was mandatory in my family. You didn't have an option there. You were going to sit down, sit still, and watch it. So when I was steeped in this, one of the things that, as far as I was concerned, the only way you could date anything was with carbon dating. Carbon dating is almost second to God. And if you can't carbon date it, then it simply can't be dated. So, with carbon dating, it only goes back so far. And off the top of my head, I can't remember. I believe it's in the neighborhood of a few thousand years. I'm wanting to say it's under 20,000. In my head, I have this number 14,000, but I could be wrong, and I'm sure someone's going to correct me. So, to Christians, because you can't carbon date something that's 10 million years old, you have no way of showing that something is 10 million years old, because they don't realize there's other ways to use radiometric dating to date things. And that, if you bring that up to a young Earth creationist, that simply will blow their mind for about 2 seconds. And then they're going to immediately hit back with, well, you have no way of knowing that because the Earth isn't that old and you weren't there to see how it decayed over that period of time, because apparently, to young Earth creationists, math is not an actual thing. You cannot do math to figure out how the universe works. Even though we can use math and mathematical calculations to put a man on the moon, and yes, that happened. Even though we can use mathematical equations to go even further and land rovers on Mars. Even though we can use mathematical equations and throw probes out past Pluto. And get an idea how crazy that is. You launch those probes decades ahead of when they're going to reach Pluto. So you have to figure out where Pluto's going to be when they get there and angle them in a way and launch them at a time when they're going to actually meet up with Pluto on their way past, and they manage to pull that off. But even though we can use math for all of that, we can't use math to figure out radiometric dating for things that are not carbon-14. Please. And that's about, I think, for today, all I'm going to do on this topic. I am going to be revisiting this topic quite a bit because since I was steeped in this for so long, I'm going to finally get it off. What's been flowing around my head out. And there are a number of times when I've watched other atheists either debate with Christians or other atheists do response videos, which I, for right now, won't be doing anything like that because my ability to edit is very limited. I'm doing all this with a cell phone, a microphone, and an audio recorder because my cell phone refuses to work with my microphone. So that's the extent of my video editing capabilities. So, but for now, I'm going to point out a few of the arguments that I've noticed were missed in some opportunities. And one of the things that I had noticed, which I've talked about already in this recording, has been how Christians think that everything needs to be wrapped up in one theory, and that one theory can't handle everything, then obviously it is absolute junk. But that wasn't my main point for this time around. My main point for this time around is to give you the three types of Christian and other religious inductees. Because you're going to find it very difficult to bring into your religion to make somebody do something different than how they've been doing it when that person is sure of themselves, is in a strong position, and knows what they're talking about, and knows how the world around them works, or at least has a good idea how the world around them works. So with that, I bid you all good day, or good night, depending on when you're listening to this.